Well, it is already mentioned in the presentation of Alexander, the Dutch flower. Yeah, is it the tulip? Is it another flower? We're not sure that, but we're going to hear that from Roel van Raaij. Please come forward.
Yeah, thank you. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased that I see a lot of old dinosaurs in the education for sustainable development also, but also to see many new faces here. And I'm Roel van Raaij, and I'm in the Netherlands working on this subject of education for sustainable development. In preparation of this this conference, we had some work done already. And there are people here in the audience that worked on this flower, in which we picked all the elements of a whole school approach that we think that were important. So I will talk about our perspective, how we experience this in the Netherlands. And I'm not doing this alone. I will invite later on Indy van de Sande, which is my new colleague from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. That's the real name.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, or maybe Water State, but I think both is
in
good.
former days, it was just the Ministry of Environment. That was very simple. Okay. Let's see how to... Yes. Let's bring all the talk back to one basic line. And this is the bottom line. We have to learn to live within the boundaries of system Earth. Simple as it is. That's our message. The way we live now, especially in the western part of our world, needs 3 Earths. And there are no 3 Earths. There's only one. So this is what we have to do. And we can't send every student to space to experience how small our world is and what we have to do with that. Okay. If it is so simple, this is rather complex, but this is a simplified idea of things that you have already heard. I hope you can visit the website, wholeschoolapproachleren4morgen.org, but it will be in your papers. And I'm very pleased that the people who worked on this, and there are a lot of people in the Netherlands, that they bring it back to just 6 elements that are fundamental to a whole school approach in our perception. And that's the curriculum, it's the content, the didactics, the professional development, in this case of teachers, the building management and operations, very important, walk the talk, teach as you preach, the school environment, and Alexander Leicht already mentioned that, involve all the partners around the school, but it starts with the school's vision. And there is no more. That's the key elements. And of course, we do that to work on the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the issues of the Sustainable Development Goals is not 17 goals as you see it here or in the building blocks. They are interconnected, and I'm in favor of the cubic, of Rubik cube. If you change one, everything will change. If you talk about water, you also talk about food. If you talk about food, you also talk about health. If you talk about health, you also talk about equity. So all these things are connected, and perhaps that's why it is so difficult to address sustainability in our educational systems. It's part of biology. I'm a biologist myself. It's part of geography. I was a teacher in geography. But it's also part of economics. It's part of health studies. It is part of almost everything. So where to put sustainability in that school system? Oh, let's go back one. Okay, very important. It's said already, it's not new. And we're standing on the shoulders of many. And some of us are here in the audience and worked on whole school approaches since years. And I just mentioned a few from my bookshelf at home, and it is the whole school approach. I think this report is from 2004. The Eco School program is in its essence is also a kind of a whole school approach. The work of ANSI, Paul, it is also your work, I learned. It's all elements of this whole school approach. So it's not really new. And on organizing, two very important elements is the competencies. And I picked just a picture of of the Nagoya UNESCO conference, and the learning objectives. And I'm I'm a favorite of this publication by UNESCO, in which they pointed out for every one of these Sustainable Development Goals, what is the content, what is to be learned. But how to do that? Oh, too big. My fingers are too big for this small instrument. This is also a very old picture. I think it's 20 years old, this picture. But it gives us already the context in how the learning takes place. The backyard biodiversity, or the schoolyard, entrepreneurship, vocational applied, innovative learning and teaching, the participatory decision making, the school community and gardening around. So this picture is already taking in all these elements. Okay, have a closer look. What does it mean for school? Because when I go to a school in the Netherlands, say, well, you have to do the whole school approach because it's very important for the Sustainable Development Goals. They say, what? What? Sustainable development? Oh, yeah, Sustainable Development Goals. They know about the flag and the colors, and yeah. But what has it to do with me? What do I have to do as a school, as a teacher, as a school director, as a concierge in the school, parents going to the school? Well, there are just 6 questions, and it's from the Dutch flower. And these are the questions. And the essence is to ask these questions to each other. Why? To what end do we learn? When I have a conversation with one of the big school boards for primary schools in the Netherlands, they say, well, we have a lot of problems. We have shortage of teachers. We have too many children. We had 2 years of COVID. Yes, all that is true. But in the essence, what are you for? What are you learning for? What are you offering to young people to become in 10, 20, 30 years? What is needed for their future? What do they need for the future? So I think the first question is very crucial. Why and to what end do we learn? And what do we teach? Well, we do teach the 17 goals. And I showed you the paper on the learning objectives, so that will be okay. The content is not the problem. The complexity of the content, that's the problem. So another issue is, how do we learn? Just to sit here and to listen. Yes, here we as adults, we have to do this. But we also learn outside. We learn outside the school. We learn by exploring. We learn by art-based environmental education, one of my favorites. And who do we learn from? Not from the teacher only. We learn from each other. We learn from people around. We learn from parents. And where do we learn? I started as a teacher biology. I never made it longer than 6 weeks in a school because I had 30 students in a room of 36 square meters. Well, I thought that's not my future. I'm a biology teacher, and there I want to teach. And that was not possible, but environmental education was my escape. So I'm still a little bit of a teacher, but not in a classroom, thank God. So where do we learn? We learn everywhere. And who do we learn with? And you will experience that in the coming day in the Netherlands. We learn with a lot of people. For example, Helene, which is in the back. She has in the province of Friesland a complete community around schools that cooperate with her in the learning process. So these questions are the crucial questions. And to deliver this at the school, in this flower, in this website, on each of these petals of this flower, we offer questions. Not just the simple questions that I asked, but really the questions that go into the subject. For example, professional development. And talk to teachers. Discuss with teachers. What knowledge, skills, and talents for ESD do we already have? Well, in primary education, some of the teachers say, well, I don't know that animals and that plants outside, I don't know a lot of that. Is it important? Well, perhaps not. Perhaps it's more important as a teacher, you say, well, I don't know either, but I'm curious. Let's go outside, find some information. That's another approach of learning. So these questions, I will manage in 5 minutes. About the teaching and the teachers. What we have in the Netherlands is a lot of materials. I just picked two. There's a course for vocational training, and that is a publication, a handbook for teaching in secondary schools. And there are a lot more. So every 6 elements, I think we have materials provided. But this, I learned this from Arjen Walls, is still the puzzle. Are we teaching the students of today with the things of yesterday? Just a joke. So, that's from the dinosaur. Let's hear it from the new generation of policymakers.
Yes, thanks for the introduction.
Here you come in, Indy.
Yeah, I will. Thanks. So I will stand here. So thanks, Roel, for that introduction, and I will introduce myself. As Roel said, I'm one of the new kids on the block on Education for Sustainable Development, and I am Indy van der Sande, and I'm a policy advisor for circular economy in the Dutch education system at the Ministry for Infrastructure and Water State Management, or whatever. And I'm really honored to be here, and it's a great pleasure to see you all, because in my short professional career, this is the first time I have a really big congress in person. So I'm really happy to be here as well and to see everyone for the first time, not online, but in a complete person. And I have the pleasure to tell you about the objectives of this conference. And before we start about that, and I know we are a bit running out of time, but I will quickly introduce you, because I think it's all clear to us that we need to change our society in a fundamental way, because the environmental crisis urges to rethink and to redesign our whole institutions, not only the challenges, but also the emerging opportunities and the needed changes. So, and as what the other one said as well before, this complete society transformation starts with the education and learning to live within the planetary boundaries. So if we can see that education is key for change, we can question ourselves, is already our education systems meeting the need for change already? Is education for sustainable development, for example, already the usual standard for quality education? I don't think so, but we see that the whole school approach, as we told before, is one of the major concepts in the strategies for example, UNIC, education for UNESCO, and also recently in the European Union. And it's all about to get more in the essence of the ESD, to live, to learn to live within the planetary boundaries. Because it's really easy to be honest, because when you are engaging a school in education for sustainable development, you're just engaging a school in learning for the future. And that's not there. And it's really, I think everyone knows, because the future is pressing. So in light of this pressing environmental crisis we are facing, this conference will dive into how we can use the instrument of the whole school approach to implement education for sustainable development successfully. Let's see. Oh, this is working. So, but as we said before, education, of course, is key for change and to get all the people involved in education for sustainable development and to learn to live all within the planetary boundaries. But something more, which is also really important, and that's why I'm happy to see everyone here, is that collaboration is essential as well to have a successful implementation of the whole school approach of even the whole school institution. Because the whole school approach, if we also acknowledge in the Netherlands, is a challenging but a really a concept that combines different pathways of action. So you're all required to involve in your action. And it's really a concept that combines different pathways, such as good housekeeping, sustainable buildings, the curricula, but also you need to get the best teacher competences so that they also know what they need to do. So which is with the whole school approach is, in the end, every starting point can be valuable, but we need to see still the whole picture. So as I said before, collaboration is essential, not only internal and external schools, teachers, or all the stakeholders, but also governments, businesses, NGOs are all really important to bring education for sustainable development to success. So, and it's really necessary that we do it now, because the urgency is needed, and I ask it for not only because of we see like the latest IPCC report, like that all those things are coming up, but also like all the protesters with like my younger generation that are coming up for. So I think we have all a task to to make something of what they are asking for. So that's the objective of this conference. I think it's really important that we try to make all together a state of the art of the concept of the whole school approach. And I'm really curious how this is appearing in all the different countries, because in every different context, every country is making their a specific school culture can have different accents on how they implement it or how they use the whole school approach. And I think this is such a good 3 days in a row that we can learn from these best practices and have a discussion. And for example, today, of course, the new survey will be released and presented about what kind of international best practices are there. And I hope we can have not only learn from it, but also have the professional expertise conversation about it. And yeah, I will really want to learn from you guys, and please feel free to discuss as well all those new ideas on the table, because I think it's really important that we are all here and that we can discuss the current situation, what everyone is doing. But I think what's way more important that we also discuss the way forward. So what can we do to bring this concept of the whole school approach to a next level, and how can we take it back in our own country to implement and to make it a bigger concept as well. So I'm really curious to all your ideas about this way forward. So yeah, these are the objectives of this international conference. But after the international conference of 2.5 days, we also have our Wednesday afternoon, which is the Dutch agenda. And at this afternoon, we will discuss then we had all the international workshops and experiences and all the learning practices. And then we're going to see, okay, how can we translate and implement this within the Dutch education system? And we're not doing that only with the government as well, but also with the most important actors within the school and also outside school. So that's something I really want to learn and to see how the other countries are doing it, so that we can take it back in our Wednesday afternoon, because I think that's that's why we are here. Of course, it's really unique that we already collaborate and cooperate this congress with 3 ministries. And at our Dutch agenda, we are there with even more ministries. So I think it's a really good example to see how collaboration can be started. But in the end, it's just a starting point, because I think after the 30 this afternoon of this Wednesday afternoon, I think then we really can make the collaboration more concrete. So in the end, I think to conclude, before we go to lunch and to have this most important thing, to connect and get inspired, I really want to invite everyone to discuss and to have open conversations and to learn, and please give me all, let's discuss all the way forwards. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Indy. Thank you, love. Thank you.